Hello, Millwall fans. Paul Eiffel here. It's time for Chat with Chaps.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another episode of Chat with Chaps. This is the post-match analysis from yesterday's game where it finished at the Den. Millwall 0, Coventry City 1. Try and summarise that. I mean, I'm going to give it my best shot, but a day full of a lot of emotion for various different reasons. Horrible day. Conditions were awful. Getting in and out of the stadium, we'll come on to that later, wasn't exactly easy. And of course, before the game, a fitting tribute to our best ever manager, certainly our most successful manager in John Doherty, with the team of that era. A bit before my time, but obviously I can appreciate what that team did and what John Doherty did for the club that I absolutely love. So it was good to see that, and obviously for everyone to come together and pay tribute to John Doherty, who sadly passed away last week. And also massive fair play to Coventry City fans who contributed to that as well. So massive thank you. And of course, they always bring down a big following, and credit to them. I think they made a lot of noise throughout. And not sure on the Super Frank though, guys. I'm not going to lie. Already singing Super Frank. You've done that before kickoff. I'm not sure on that, but overall, I thought Coventry City fans were great. Right, just before I get into try and summarise yesterday, I'm just going to try a little thing different and just sort of say this right early on. So I'm aiming for 100 likes. Let's see if we can get 100 likes on this video. So if you haven't already, just give it a quick like. It always helps the algorithm. And if you're new to the channel or if you're a Coventry City fan, everything this season we are giving to Cancer Research UK, every single penny. So please just like, subscribe, share. It really helps the channel. It really helps the algorithm. And me and all the boys here really do appreciate it. So look, I think yesterday was not a good day at the office. I think that's fair to say for Millwall. An incredibly emotional Neil Harris post-match interview, which we're going to sort of dissect and get into. And I can see things from both points of view, in the sense that yesterday wasn't good enough. I think the second half at Oxford wasn't good enough. And it's really bizarre because it depends how you look at it. You can say we've lost 1 in last 10, which sounds all right, and that we're in mid-table. Or you can say we've now not won in our last 4. The last time we scored more than 1 goal was back in September. And we've actually only scored 1 goal in open play since October, which was the break against Sunderland. Other than that, they've all been set pieces. So it really does depend how you look at it. And I'm going to try and, as always, provide a bit of a balance for you. Of course, I'll give my perspective. That's why I'm doing this. And everyone's got an opinion. So if you don't agree with it, that's fine. But everyone has one. And this is just mine. And I'll certainly go into my perspective on how I see things and how I took Neil Harris's comments post the game. But as we always do, let's get right into it and start with the lineup. So the lineup, as you can see on screen now, if you are watching on YouTube, if you are following on podcasts, then guys, really appreciate that support as well. We're going to try and do a few, try and get the podcast out at the same time as YouTube, if not earlier, because want to get those podcast numbers up as well. And obviously all of the podcast proceeds also go to Cancer Research UK, by the way, just in case anyone was wondering. But anyway, the starting 11 was Lucas Jensen in goal and a back 4, a makeshift back 4, given that both Japhet Tanganga, obviously Jake Cooper, and Sean Hutchinson all out injured. So a very makeshift back 4. Danny McNamara at right back, centre back and captain Ryan Leonard, partnering him Murray Wallace, which, I'll say right now, I was really worried about Murray Wallace, but that was his first start in the league since April. So massive credit. I thought he didn't look out of place, in my opinion. Joe Bryan left back, George Savile, Casper Denor in the middle of the park. And then this was where the big surprise was, because I don't think anyone really knew that Romain Esse wasn't going to be fit to play. So no Romain Esse. Femi Aziz starts on the right, Duncan Watmore on the left. And I watched Duncan Watmore train, by the way, on Monday, because I went to the sponsorship thing. And he was training on his own. So was he fully fit? Don't know. George Honeyman behind, another surprise, and obviously fans been crying out for this, which was Macaulay Langstaff starting up top. Now, from a Coventry perspective, obviously they come down with Frank Lampard and Joe Edwards in charge, and we spoke to John, Coventry fan, before the game in the week. And, he's talked about how they've been lethargic this season and haven't really looked all that. For me personally, I think on paper, and they showed glimpses of it yesterday, Coventry got a very good team on paper at this level. In my opinion, it's a top 6 side easily. The likes of, to have the attacking options, even with Haji Wright out, of Ephraim Clark, Ellis Sims, although he didn't really do much yesterday, the Thomas Asante, Sakamoto, the midfield options of Sheaf and Torp, and it's a good side, in my opinion. Definitely a top 6 side. I don't actually think they showed a lot of it yesterday. By the way, just want to say off the bat, Coventry deserved to win the game. There is no doubt about it, and we'll get into it. But I don't actually think, I wasn't overly impressed with Coventry as a side. I don't think that we were beaten by a very good team, although I think they will get there. I think that, in my opinion, they will start to move up the table now. Let's just see how that plays out. But I don't think they were that good. I just think that we weren't particularly at the races yesterday. And look, we've got a very makeshift side, and this is where some of what Neil Harris said yesterday, I agree with. You take Cooper, Tanganga, Esse out, and Coburn, that is 4 guaranteed first team starters. So it is very, very difficult. But anyway, I can go through and certainly summarize the first half, but I'm just going to flick this up on screen, right? And this to me just summarized the first half. So what I'm showing for those listening on podcast is just the stats from the first half. So 2 shots for us, 4 shots for them. Only 1 save had to be made, 3 corners in total, 0 big chances, and a combined expected goals of 0.31. It was a dross first half, really. I could go for a play-by-play, but it's pretty pointless. The only thing I will call out, though, was I felt that we played a few nice bits of football at times. Aziz often involved. And we scored a goal. Like, it's... I've seen it back many times, and if that's a foul, then, I mean, we know parts of the game have gone anyway. But how is that a foul? To me, it's a legitimate goal, and I thought that when it went in, and I still think that now. And would we have deserved a draw? Absolutely not, no chance. But to me, it's a goal, and we should be 1-0 up directly from a corner. Obviously, the conditions played a big part in yesterday, and but we should be 1-0 up at half time. The first half was it was really poor, and I don't know whether that was just the 2 teams that were on the field, the conditions, a bit of both. Harris alluded to the fact the crowd were flat after the game, and they were. We were flat. I thought it was a poor atmosphere from our side, but at the same time, we have to be given something to shout about, and we weren't, certainly in that first half. In the second half, the game definitely changed a bit in terms of, I flicked the same stat up in the second half. So you can see here that actually we had more possession in the second half. We had 42% versus the 33%. But look at expected goals. We had 0.34. They had 1.6. They created 2 big chances. They had 10 shots, 6 corners each. And interestingly, they went more direct because they had a lot less passes, Coventry. But my overall take from all of that is they created 2 big chances and we didn't have a shot on target, right? Now, and that is the problem. That is fundamentally what the problem is. We just don't have that final bit of quality in the final third to cause team problems, and it was evident yesterday. However, there was a couple of nearly moments in the second half. I think sort of 55-minute was a chance at either end. And then for me, they started to take control of the game. And on 58 minutes, Lucas Jensen makes a really good save. You can see, just seeing on screen here, how Ephraim Clark misses from there. I don't know. He misses because he fumbles the shot, and second of all, Lucas Jensen makes a very good save, but he should never be missing from there. That is certainly a big chance. They also go on and hit the post, although I think it was given for offside. But that was after the goal. But I just want to look at the goal here, and I've watched it back a few times, and I think, and I'm not digging anyone out, by the way. I just analysed the goal, and in my opinion, Danny Mack needs to do better in this situation. So first of all, Danny Mack clears the ball away, but he only sort of, it's a soft clearance and it goes straight back to Coventry. Coventry put the ball into the box. We sort of manage to clear it and it goes out to the other side. And then if you look on screen here, this is, so Milan Van Uyck has the ball. He's not about to cross it. This is just before the cross comes in. And if you look at the positioning of, you've got Danny Mack and Femi Aziz. And in Coventry, you've got Ephraim Clark behind both of them on the left and Jake Bidwell. Now, obviously, I don't know what was said. I don't know what I saw Danny Mack point. He sort of seemed to point towards Jake Bidwell. Sorry. So, in my opinion, the winger picks up the left back and the fullback picks up the winger, right? So, therefore, Danny Mack should come out to Ephraim Clark and Femi Aziz should be on Jake Bidwell. Femi Aziz isn't doing either of those, and Danny Mack isn't. And as you can see here, this is at the point in which the cross comes in, and neither of Danny Mack and Femi Aziz is marking Ephraim Clark at the back. Like I say, for me, that's the fullback's job to mark Ephraim Clark. Neither of them do. He sneaks in at the back post and makes it 1-0. And, certainly it felt like Coventry fans enjoyed that, looking back at the celebrations. And they go 1-0 up. And as I said, they hit the post. And then the minute they go 1-0 up, Harris makes some changes. Now, he was already looking to make changes before they scored. I don't know if it were the same changes. I could be wrong. He may have been bringing Bradshaw on. And I actually turned and said to my mate yesterday, at around sort of 50-55, I thought Honeyman... I think I understand what Honeyman contributes to this team. I don't think a lot of... No, let me rephrase it. I don't think everyone necessarily understands what Honeyman can do, but even by Honeyman's limited attacking abilities, yesterday was really poor. In the first half, he kept giving the ball away and whatever. So to me, Honeyman should have come off. And I actually would have put Bradshaw on. Genuinely, I would have done. At 0-0, Bradshaw, Langstaff, because I have not seen Langstaff in a 2. I want to see Langstaff in a 2. Obviously, he doesn't. We go 1-0 down, and then he makes the 2 subs, which was Watmore and Honeyman for Ivanovic and Imaku. Now, this is what certain sections of fans have wanted, right? Obviously, not at the point when we're 1-0 down, but to see the likes of Ivanovic and Imaku come onto the pitch and to have more game time. And obviously later on, we then bring on Bradshaw, and then we bring on Mitchell and Wintle, which I assume were just to keep the energy levels up in the centre of the park. We huffed and puffed, but we didn't really create any clear-cut chances. I felt the only one of those substitutions that had an impact on the game was Imaku. The lad's just got some pace, and he beats his man more often than he doesn't, in fairness. The one thing I would say on Imaku, and this plays into the whole Harris narrative, is that rightly or wrongly, and I'm not saying this is rightly or wrongly, we only ever seem to see Imaku when we need a goal. So therefore, it takes away necessarily the need for him to show his tactical awareness and his defensive capabilities. It's almost like, here you go, son, here's the ball, go and run at teams, which again, I like. All I'm saying is we don't necessarily know those other elements of his game, because that's the only time he gets to come on is when we're chasing a game, pretty much. And you just have to maybe trust. And again, this is what it all goes down to, right? You have to trust that Harris is a better judge in terms of whether Imaku has got all those other qualities to start games over us, because we don't see it. And this is what it all kind of all boils down to. But you know, he puts on all of those players. I've had a few people say it was a bit Holloway-esque at times because we just put a load of players on, and yes, it was. But I guess he's damned if he does and damned if he don't, because if you don't do that, you're not going for it. I don't really know. I only felt that we kind of controlled the game for like the last 10 minutes. And as I said, we didn't really create anything. And obviously, it was summarized by we get a corner, last kick of the game, keeper comes up, and then the ball into the box is just dreadful. And yes, of course, the conditions are terrible. I understand that. But the ball into the box has to be better there. And then we lose 1-0, and it's a fair reflection of the game, in my opinion, unfortunately. Like I said, from Coventry perspective, I thought that first half, you just tried to not do anything too drastic, kept it quite simple. And then I felt you had a 15-20 minute period in the second half where you dominated and the goal was coming in and you got it. Did you do enough to get the second goal? Probably not. But I think overall 1-0 is a fair reflection. And this is where then you have to take a step back and just have a think about how we're doing. Because you got to remember, we played Coventry last season in Joe Edwards' first game in charge, and we lost 3-0. And this is where I think Harris's comments are coming from, because this is just my opinion. I don't know this. I'm not privy to any information. I'm just trying to understand the psyche of what's going on with Harris and what's going on with the situation. So this is my take on it. And like I said, agree with me, disagree with me. It's just my opinion. And there's been a ton of emotion. It's why I kind of left it yesterday. Plus, I was pretty pissed after the game. Speaking of after the game, by the way, something needs to be sorted about the exit. Is it the Cobb Lane exit? I'm not sure. But the exit where the works are being done, because it's an accident waiting to happen. It is so bad to try and cram that many people in such a short gap with no lighting, with awful muddy terrain where people can fall and slip and stuff, and people can get it's got to be sorted. That's really, really not good. I don't know necessarily who liability that lies on, but something needs to be sorted there. Anyway, back to the whole Harris thing. So this is just my take on it. My take on it is that we have a manager who feels that his achievements are underappreciated by everyone, really, in terms of the board and big parts of the fans. And if I'm honest, I agree with him, because I don't think, as a general fan base, people do realise the job he's done. And if we just think about it for a second, he come in last season and he kept us up. We were down, in my opinion. We were down. And any other manager come in last season, we were down. Not only has he kept us up, he's now got us as a mid-table side in the Championship, and we've lost our best player. You've got to remember that. Like, Fleming was our best player when he left the club. So, and he's averaging at 1.6 points per game since he's come back. So you put all those things into the mix and you look at where we were 12 months ago. It wasn't even 12 months ago. That's the thing. And where we are now. And it is a remarkable turnaround. And unfortunately, we always demand more. And he talks about this a lot in his interviews. And this is why I'm saying you can just tell he feels underappreciated, because he goes on about, of course, I want more. Of course, that I have to keep reminding myself. And ultimately, he's not referring to himself. He knows what a good job he's done. He's referring to big chunks of the fans. So, and again, when we played Coventry last year with Joe Edwards in charge, we lost 3-0. So, in my opinion, point number one is we have a manager that feels underappreciated. And I agree with him, right? The second thing is we have a manager who feels that he doesn't have the tools in order to do his job, because he and this goes fundamentally, and this is why there is quite clearly something that's not fully aligned at the club, because you have a direction from the board that is around recruitment of younger players, which to me is quite clear, particularly with interviews from Steve Gallen and various bits and bobs that have come out from the club. The direction is younger players, invest in that, and over time they'll be worth more money, and so on and so forth, which fundamentally is probably the right thing to do. However, we have a manager that does not believe the players that the club are recruiting, and again, my opinion, are good enough. And therefore, he won't play them. So he plays people that he trusts. And if he thinks they're ready, he'll play them. Look at Romain. No other manager played him. Even Harris didn't last year. He is. Look at Femi Aziz. Femi Aziz is a player that the club have recruited, and he's putting him in the side because he thinks he's ready. But he quite clearly doesn't think Langstaff, Ivanovic, Imaku, to name three, are ready yet. And therefore, what he's saying is, well, I'm the manager. I see these players day in, day out. I don't think they're ready yet. So I'm not going to play them. And instead, all he's then got to play is the likes of Bradshaw, Honeyman, etc. And that's where that conflict is. So, first point, a manager who feels underappreciated. Second point, a manager who feels he doesn't have the tools to do his job currently, which is to try and finish as high up the table as he can. He's not necessarily playing the long game because he's not going to be here. And he's not going to be here because I think he just doesn't necessarily agree with whatever the club is doing in the background for direction. Now, I don't know why that is. Is it that he just wants, this was always a stopgap for him? I don't know. And let's face it, majority of the fan base, if you ask, I don't know, I reckon 80% of Millwall fans would say they don't think Harris is the man to take us to the next level. I think that's probably a fair statement. Now, maybe that's right, and maybe he isn't the man to take us to the next level. But what he's saying is, well, you're not giving me the tools to do that anyway. So you spent £3 million on a striker, or €3 million, whatever, that isn't ready. And that is the thing. So if you just look at Mihailo Ivanovic, did he really impact the game yesterday? No, he didn't. And just for a second, take away the €3 million. Just take that away. Just pretend it was undisclosed. We had no idea what we spent on him. Would everyone be sitting there saying he should be in the first team? I don't think they would, based on what we've actually seen of him. And that's not a dig. The guy's clearly got talent. He's clearly going to be a fantastic player in the future. But for the here and now, which is what Harris is saying, he's just not ready. And then what all of this comes down to is we then have a manager who doesn't really care what he says anymore. So I don't think Neil Harris is losing it, because I've seen that quoted a few times. I just think he's like, I don't really care. I'm not going to be here for much longer. So I'm just going to speak my mind. I don't care about, again, just my opinion. He was quoted as saying something along the lines of, when you take out 3 players, I can't remember the exact quote, but it was something along the lines of, you take out the 3 players, you need to remind the thickos, whatever. Now, personally, I really don't care that he's called, if he's implying it to me, and he's probably not, because I agree with him on a lot of things. So he's basically calling out people that don't necessarily understand that you take the 3 best players out of a team and you're not going to be as good. And to me, that's fairly obvious. And so he's calling a certain section of fans thickos. When did we all get so bothered about being called thickos, by the way? Like, I mean, come on, like, we're Millwall fans. Like, we give it and we take it. That's just what we are. So I'm not bothered personally about that comment. The comments I'm more bothered about are the comments about his players. So yesterday, Harris, he said the following things. He mentioned not having the ability to break teams down and to get that goal numerous times in his post-match. I quote, "We had no quality on the pitch." These are the things I don't like. For me, I don't like the digging out of certain players, and he quite clearly doesn't like Imaku, and I don't like that, right? Clearly a Harris fan, right? Always have said that. And again, contextualizing it, he has done wonders for this club again in the last 6-7 months, whatever long he's been here. But I do not like him digging out players. And that's the thing I take issue with. I don't take issue with him calling a small section of fans fickos. Like, come on, guys. Like, we're Millwall fans. And I might get slated for this in the comments. I don't know. But you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. If I come on here and I put this out and I go off and say, oh, he's called us fickos. Oh, that's a disgrace. I'm just telling you my opinion. I couldn't care less he calls me a ficko. What I care about is what goes out on that pitch. And if he starts to slate some of the players, that's what I don't like. So for me, just to summarize, a manager that thinks he's come in and he's done a bloody good job and people don't appreciate it, largely, which I agree with. A manager that doesn't feel he has the tools to do the job and to get the team even further up, which he thinks he's capable of, but he doesn't have the tools to do the job. The reason he doesn't have the tools to do the job is because the club are invested in the long term, not the short term. Therefore, you have a manager that's 6 months left on his contract that's basically like, well, do you know what? I'm just going to come out and say what I want because I know I'm not going to be here, so on and so forth. And I think that is what's coming together. And unfortunately, I can only see this heading one way because I feel certain sections of fans are just waiting for us to lose a game so that the Neil Harris haters can come out. Like, it's a really bizarre one. It really, really is. But I think as a club, we're in a little bit of a limbo status, to be honest, because you've got a manager and a board that quite clearly are not going in the same direction in terms of their thought processes. And there's almost no way that that's all going to coexist as of next season. So you're kind of like, is this season just a bit null and void? And it's just about being in mid-table, staying in the league, and then we kick on next season with a new manager, or whatever that might look like. I don't know. It's a real bizarre one. It's the atmosphere yesterday summarized it. It's a little bit flat at the minute, and because performances and results on the whole have been pretty good, none of this has been coming to the fore. But because now we should have beaten Oxford, we didn't. We didn't play that well yesterday, albeit a lot of players out. It's come to the fore again, and of course, it's been exacerbated by Neil Harris's comments post-match because, I've seen a lot of fans say, "Well, if Gary Rowett has said that, blah blah blah." Well, yeah, correct, but Neil Harris has given a lot to this club. Does he have the right to call certain things out? I think he does personally, and again, I might be wrong, and you might not agree with me, and that's all fine and dandy, but I don't think it's good. There is no good outcome of this. I don't see it ending particularly well. I think the one criticism I have of Neil Harris, and this is coming from someone that loves the man, is at times he can be a bit stubborn. And I think that combined with now a very carefree attitude in terms of I'll say what I want and whatever, is leading to some of those tensions that have arisen post the game yesterday. So it is what it is. But if we just focus on what we're seeing on the pitch and forget the off the pitch stuff, I think we have to contextualize. We are now a mid-table championship side, whereas last season we were dead and buried. We've lost our best player in Zian Fleming over the summer. We haven't really replaced him, let's be honest. And we played the game yesterday without 4 players that would be guaranteed to start in Jake Cooper, Javit Tanganga, Romain Esse, and Josh Coburn. They all would start. So I think it's important to put that into perspective. But it's also important to put in perspective that, yes, we've only lost 1 in 10, but we've now not 1 in 4. We haven't scored more than 1 goal in a game since September, which, by the way, we haven't conceded more than 1 goal in a game since September. So we're kind of like neither here nor there. But a lack of ability to score goals, and certainly from open play, is a concern. And for me, that has to be addressed in January. I think you could see that there wasn't a lot of creativity yesterday outside of Romain Esse. I do want to give a shout out for a person who was my man of the match, if I'm able to give one, which was Femi Aziz. Didn't stop trying. He was the only one that looked like he was going to create something, some nice touches, took the game to them. I I thought he was really good overall. Doesn't win many headers though. He jumps too early, but that's just a side note. I feel like I'm criticising him too much there because I thought overall he was good. I thought Leonard slotted in pretty well back into centre back, considering it's not his position, and I thought Muzzle was okay as well, all things considered. So look, I've rambled there. Agree with me or disagree with me, I don't know. I'm just trying to contextualise how I see it. But I think in January we need to address the lack of ability to open up teams, and then I think longer term we just need a little bit more togetherness in terms of the direction of the board and the way in which the manager is trying to pick teams and put teams out onto the pitch. So there we go. But I'll see you on Wednesday, of course, because we'll be back down the Den against Sheffield United. I said this before, in my opinion, 3 teams that should all be in the top 6 come the end of the season: Coventry, Sheffield United, and then Middlesbrough. So it's going to be tough, and it'll certainly show what we're all about. Good news is Javit Tanganga's back Wednesday. Bad news is I think Ryan Leonard's suspended. So we'll have to see what team we end up with. Anyway, guys, this is football, right? And we need to remind ourselves that it's just football. Very, very difficult when we all care so much about the team that we love. But as always, thank you so much for listening to this. Whether you agree with it, whether you don't, that's fine, not a problem. But the fact you listen, the fact that you invest in the podcast, I really appreciate it. We're trying to raise as much money as we can for cancer research this year. At Christmas time, I'll share how much money we've made so far, which is fantastic, and we've got a few ideas in the pipeline in terms of how maybe we can make a little bit more. So as always, really appreciate every single one of you. Thank you. Enjoy your week, and we'll see you down the Den on Wednesday. Of course. Bye for now.